In this episode, we talk with Tina Hurley and learn about her organization, Less Leg, More Heart. We also hear her story of adapting, and we talk all things adaptive athletics and adaptive organizations in general, and how the future is bright. So tune in.
Through that tragedy, taught me life is finite. You really have a short window to take what it is from life that you want and enjoy it.
You can go back to that day, February 18, 1990, and change what happened. My honest answer is I wouldn't change it.
You're just going to have to go through it, and your strength is going to be found in simply going through it and being authentic and real in the process.
I was talking with my palliative care doctor today, and she turned around to me and she looked at me and she was like, do you think that you'll eventually beat this? And I was sort of like, yeah, that's probably what I'm trying to do.
No, nothing will ever take away the pain of my daughter not being here. My reality.
Well, I know what my body's going to do to me. I've got a wheelchair in my future. But you know what I've been looking for?
What's that?
One with off-road wheels.
Just remembering me as I am, happy and energetic and full of life, no matter what.
You can expect life to kick you in the teeth, but you always get back up, no matter what, and you just keep going.
Living Adaptive with Scott Davidson.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Just a quick reminder to head over to livingadaptive.com for show notes, contact info for guests, all episodes, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. All right, I want to jump right into this. We welcome Tina Hurley onto the show. What's up, Tina? Thanks for coming on.
Super stoked to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, Tina, I say this to other people, I think you're the number one adaptive athlete to lined up to be on a reality TV show. You get a ton of attention. In fact, I think of the people I've interviewed, you get more attention than all of them, than everybody I've talked to, and people that I see that I haven't talked to. You get a ton of attention, and a lot of people are driven to you. You have a lot of unique perspectives to offer. You have a huge background in medicine, and you have a nonprofit. So you've really kicked off a lot of things.
Thank you. Yeah, that's humbling, and I'm honored to be in this position. I'm honored that people care enough to listen, and I'm excited to have a story to share and to be able to use that to serve other people.
Well, I was thinking about it, for sure. I mean, just with that following alone, for sure, can't we get you on Dancing with the Stars or Ellen or something like that? Can we get you out there?
Can someone make a phone call? I would. The yes would come out so fast it wouldn't even be audible.
You're really, really good ambassador. And on top of it, though, people sensationalize you. One article I was reading today was from some UK news, and they're American cheerleader, stage cheerleader, throws a going away party for her leg. I'm it's everywhere. Everybody's sensationalizing you, or else they love you. They're posting videos of you, cutting up your pictures, making slideshows of you. So it's got to be almost, I don't know. It's got to be, feel good. Did you really, though, throw us a going away party for your leg?
First of all, with all these compliments, it's going to be hard to sit my head outside the door again after this.
Come on.
So we got to calm it down. But I'm taken aback by all those compliments. It's exciting. It's exciting to have the word sensationalized be used. But I think more than that, it's just exciting to get coverage to start uncovering more about the curiosity of being adaptive and living your best life despite limb loss, and that limb loss doesn't mean life loss. And in fact, it means quite the opposite. Your life can be much more fulfilling by going through some of these losses. So it's the sensationalization and the excitement that's happening in some of the press articles that are happening. The bigger theme to that for me isn't so much an ego feed. It's really, with the spotlight, how can I take that to shine light on areas that are dark and be able to feed back into the system to make it better for people in my wake. So that's why I'm the most excited about it. But yeah, I threw a farewell foot party. Actually, I stole the idea from, I believe it was one of the Boston Marathon bomb victims.
So I
was reading an article, and I covered this in one of the videos on my YouTube, but I was talking about how I needed closure and my family needed closure, and everyone wanted to throw a fundraiser and everybody wanted to get together and people wanted to help. And I felt so honored, but it was a little overwhelming because I was still trying to grieve and mourn and come to acceptance with my fate. And so it just sort of fell in alignment, and people created this big event, and I got this huge henna tattoo down my leg that said farewell on it, and, did all the last that I could possibly do. I crushed 20 pounds of grapes in a bin, so I knew what that would feel like under my foot. And I walked on sand and grass and, every surface so that I had that memory. I made foot molds of my foot before I had it amputated. I did everything I could to have as much conclusion as I could possibly have and try to create an environment for my community and my family that was more of a jovial, carefree, we're going to be okay kind of feel, so that we could kind of fake it until we make it in some degree and use it as a fundraiser to raise funds for the prosthetics, which would be a huge expense. And it really was a lighthearted experience, and it saved a lot of questions. I was bombarded with love and, curiosity, and there was a lot that I had to sift through in responding to a lot of people. And so this created a forum where we can kind of catch everybody up, knock out all the details, and then make everybody kind of feel as at peace as we can feel in one place rather than in a million places. And so it was a really interesting and unique opportunity. It was definitely curious for a lot of people. It got some press coverage up north where I had it because nobody really had heard about this. Because you think about limb loss as this just tremendously sad, terrible thing. And so to see somebody smiling and, zip lining with their shoe off and, excited in a sense to regain quality of their life, even though it meant losing their foot, was just a concept that sparked so much curiosity. And so again, the educator in me wanted to use that as an opportunity, not only for me and my family for closure, but to kind of create a different stigma around the sense of limb loss and kind of the hope that that could give rather than the life that people feel that it takes away.
Dude, Tina, I know this about you too, but it's crazy. You made a tabloid. Like there's probably, I don't know how many million probably read that article. That's kind of cool. Like if I was going to have an article, I'd want one unique like that. I want it to be worldwide, kind of like that was going. That was a pretty insanely rad thing to read. And I did see the pictures. It was cool. You did get that henna tattoo and you were like doing all the adventure. And that's something about you. You mentioned this, that you were kind of like trying to help those that were going to go through the process with you. Loved ones, caregivers that will help afterwards, and just those that have been around you. And that's who you are. And kind of you've covered your story a lot about how, you became an amputee and what was going on there. We'll dive in that in a second, but I want to dive into this first, is that you're not only an athlete on a pretty significant scale, and you always were, but you're also running a nonprofit, and that nonprofit is Less Leg, More Heart. And so it's a pretty interesting concept, what you're doing there. You've always seemed to be motivated like that. And you also offer a unique perspective. And we're going to just get into this one too, and then jump to your nonprofit, is that you're actually a medical practitioner, physician's assistant, and you've been a patient. That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's really incredible to have a perspective from both sides of the bed, to be the person that has stood at the foot of the bed talking to people that are, just coming into new disability, and also to be the person laying in the bed that doesn't have a foot being told, about this new life that they're about to enter into. And it was, I think, as an adaptive person, going through what I've gone through in the medical system as a patient has been some of the best training possible as a clinician. So it's really interesting because each role has fed the other one in a way that I couldn't have learned in textbooks and I couldn't have gotten elsewhere. So it's been a really beautiful gift, not only in my ability to traverse the rocky landscape that is this adaptive life, but also the just ability to take those pieces of knowledge and be able to help, like you'd mentioned, folks that are getting into this world and caregivers and even other clinicians to collaborate more with prosthetists and to unify in their ability to communicate, pre-operatively, operatively, and post-operatively to create the best, standard of care for people, because it's not just they go through their injury, they get their acute rehabilitation, and then they just get on with their life. There's so much more that we need to provide to people holistically by stepping outside of the snow globe and seeing the other little, pieces that are in between the lines of the textbooks that we read when we went through schooling. So I'm really blessed in a lot of ways to have both of those perspectives. And it certainly was the catalyst that started even the ideas for this nonprofit.
Do you think it will trickle down in the sense that we have an adaptive world, a non-adaptive world? We all adapt to an extent, but like in a sense of adaptive athletes, and it seems like that will pay off. I think it will have some some serious ramifications if you can build an army of those that have possibilities on their mind. That includes physicians all the way down to the patient.
I think knowledge is power. I mean, it's super cliche to say, but it's so true. The more we can get these stories out of people defying medical science, the more we can get the issues out, you know, physical, emotional, financial implications of certain tests and procedures and post-operative care and complications. You know, the more education and the more resource sharing that we provide as a group, the easier it's going to be for everybody to, like I said, unify in this movement towards inclusion, which is gaining so much traction. I mean, what was it, just 6 or 8 months ago, the Paralympics just increased the pay for Paralympic podium winners 400% so that now they are equivalent to the pay of Olympians. I mean, there's some big stuff that's happening, and it's just a matter of taking the pieces of bread that are floating in the ocean for resources and, you know, and challenges, and pulling them all together with solution-based thinking and knowledge to disseminate so that we don't have to have other folks and their families in the midst of their grieving trying to reinvent these wheels that we've already invented through our own struggles.
Gotcha. And you know what? You just said the word, though. You said Paralympics. I know you went through surgery, but are you going to gear up for the Paralympic Games? And if so, do you want to call anybody out and talk some trash? Because that'd be awesome. You don't have to. But
No, I would be very excited to represent our country in the Paralympics. I'm certainly a competitive person at heart, and I've trained now in 2 different Paralympic sports in the last year. And so I just had my wing fixed. And once that thing is up to speed, I'm looking forward to submerging and trying a few different things for the 2020 or 2022
like
games.
What?
You know, well, so I tried out cycling last year in Colorado Springs, and I loved it. And so it's just a matter of classification, because I have a really unique and fairly misunderstood in the adaptive world diagnosis, where both of my legs are affected. You know, I don't get blood flow below my knees when my calves are contracted. And so I'm technically classified in bobsled as a seated athlete based on, you know, rigorous medical documentation review and physical examinations. And so with cycling, I loved it. And I actually was able to do sprinting on a 2-wheel upright at levels that were only 0.04 seconds below the national standard team average, which for a brand new person on a brand new prosthetic in the velodrome for the first time was really exciting. So I have a natural inclination to be like an anaerobic sort of, you know, cycle sprinter, but it's all based on classification, and it's all based on my physical status at the time that I start training. So cycling would be a really cool thing to get into. I loved it. And then as far as anything else, you know, bobsled, unfortunately, didn't make it into the 2022 games because there was some discrepancies with numbers at the championships. So they have not made the cut for 2022. So I need to actually try some stuff out, because, you know, this year is the first year that I've really been medically stable. I hit a 1-year surgery-free mark in October of last year after 13 surgeries in 3 years. And so it was really the first time I started to chew on the idea of being able to do anything again. And now, you know, I just had a shoulder surgery, which, you know, is more garden variety, and recovery is going good, and I should be to full capacity in just a few months. And so beyond that, I mean, I have so many vast interests. It's just a matter of getting out there, seeing what I'm innately good at, and making sure that I fall into something that is politically sound and has really good coaching. I mean, if I'm inclined toward it, which is most sports, I don't really discriminate too hard, and I can, you know, really relate to the coaching styles of the people on board, and it's an organized, you know, governing body, I think that I'll be more inclined to fall into that. So I don't know is the bigger answer. And I'm totally in awe by the commitment level, despite the adversity that some of these adaptive athletes face. I mean, I am just bewildered at the magnitude of strength emotionally and physically that I witnessed with the people that I trained with out in Colorado and the people that I continue to meet in the adaptive world. So rather than calling people out and talking trash, I actually am just sort of sappy and I just am so in awe and excited to collaborate with these people.
Okay. Speaking of competition though, you're at the ATF, Adaptive Training Foundation. It has to get insane down there. It's kind of like a fishbowl of athletes that at some point, I'm sure you're competing against each other. What's that experience like down there? That's like, that's a pretty sought after, position to be in.
So it's, it's actually an interesting, infrastructure. So they're like flagship program, is, called Redefine. And so it's a 9-week, redefinition, both mentally and physically, for people that have suffered through trauma and have resultant permanent disability or have congenital abnormalities. And more than 50% of combat wounded vets. And, people come from all over the country, and it's, capped at like 14 athletes per class. And, we use the term athlete, but really it's anybody, it's anybody, whether they have an athletic background or they don't. And they call themselves athletes at the end because they really crush it while they're there. And it's not, it's a misconception a little bit that it's super competitive. I think they compete against themselves. It's individualized training, but the idea and the concept and the magic there is the tribe. I mean, the family that's there, the support that's there, the lifelong friendships that are there, the level of investment of the coaching and volunteer staff that are there, not only being just top notch, but also just being the kindest hearted people that will help you both in athletics and mental games, but also in your life is really what sets it apart. But they also have another program. They have a few, and another one is called Reignite. And that's more for the professional athletes. That's for the people that have significant athletic aspirations, and they actually will be individually trained by coaches for a specific goal. So
adaptive or non-adaptive?
Adaptive, yeah. Cool. They train both in the facility. Some are for pay, like, New England Patriots are there, and we've got Olympic bobsledders that are there. So, there's a lot of high level able bodies that are, paying for their training with the coaches that are there, but their nonprofit is exclusively for people with disabilities.
Wow. That's cool that you guys kind of mingle together. You get to hang out and do that. I've always wanted to check out the place. I just haven't been into Dallas in recent years. And then on top of it, I'm super jealous about the community, the camaraderie. I see it all the time. You guys really are kind of like a family, I guess. You know the energy when you walk into a live game, like a big live game. Yeah, for sure. And you can almost feel the electricity in the air. Yes, it's absolutely. Kind of like that. You walk through that door. It's a 20,000 square foot facility. They just moved in April of last year to this huge facility that's beautiful. And it's hard to explain. You walk in, you see people that have one limb, you see people with spinal cord injuries, neuromuscular disorders, amputations of every flavor, and nobody looks at anyone else different. Everybody is, the owner always says, if you treat people broken, they act broken. But if you treat people whole, they rise to realize the true potential in themselves. And that's really what their motto is. People have gone through things and they have missing limbs and they have missing function. But at the end of the day, they are a person. And if you treat them like that, that's when they become the best version of themselves. There's no looking down to them. People harass each other just like you do in normal life. And it's that normal treatment and that lack of letting people fall into pity. There's actually a pity box, a sympathy box on the floor in the middle of the gym. And it's actually so it's taped off, and it says, it's a sympathy box, and it says your excuses are invalid. And so anytime you feel frustrated or, self-loathing, somebody might call you out and be like, dude, go step in the pity box. And the purpose of it being in the center of the gym is so that if you were to even mosey toward it, you are faced with a 360-degree view of people in every direction that has a story just as bad, if not much worse than yours, that has no excuse and is out there just killing it. And you won't step in the box. You will just put yourself back in your place and just start grinding. It's not about what you went through. It's not about victimizing. It's about owning what you went through, walking through the fire, doing the work mentally and physically, and recognizing your true potential, not only just by yourself, but finding strength and vulnerability to allow other people to help you, because that's the hardest thing to do. I think this system that's down at ATF is such an example to others about how to approach those that are adapting. They can compete. And I think any adaptive person, most adaptive people will tell you, don't pity me. Don't do that. So that's really cool. What's it like hanging out with Dave? What's it like working around him?
Man, he's like a ball of energy. Yeah. I'm telling you what, he is like he's like the modern day Sonic the Hedgehog. He's got more energy in a pinky than I do in my entire body. And talk about passion and just, that when he speaks, I mean, he just commands attention. The way he wordsmiths, I mean, I've seen him now present so many times, and he is just a captivating motivational speaker. And, you know, the why behind what he created and the lives that he's changed in his mission and the people he's recruited that have helped change those lives. I mean, he radiates just confidence, and he radiates this like invisible fairy dust that literally anyone that's in the presence of him feels more confident and feels more valid and feels more loved and feels more capable. He has this ability to really bring out the best in the people that are around him and create leaders out of people that initially walk through the doors with sunken shoulders and eyes on the floor. And it's a beautiful process to watch an athlete or a person come in at the beginning of that 9-week program and watch what happens to their posture and the light in their eyes and their smile and their family, you know, dynamic. You know, it's really a renovation, and he can just dig in and find that thing that, you know, feeds the fire of someone's soul, and he can just tap into it innately. He's just got a gift for seeing people and recognizing their capabilities, and really, like I said, he's a commanding presence that is just, he's inspiring. You know, he inspires people to be their best self.
I know his impacts a lot, like in terms of like outside of his gym, because people watch those videos and they do see what he's doing, and we see the results too of those lives that are so heavily impacted. It's really impressive. I know people that watch it, you know, that have mentioned, I've talked to a lot of people and they've mentioned, you know, I watched what's going down at ATF, you know, it gives me a bounce in my step. I'm ready to go after again. So it's pretty impressive. That includes me, by the way. It really does.
You know, what's really cool too, and you speak about that, people watching it, the way that I came to be at the Adaptive Training Foundation, you know, I lived in New Hampshire for 34 years of my life and found, you know, different excuses to stay there, you know, all valid, but you know, you talk about divine intervention or appointment or, you know, universal energy or whatever people want to call it. But, you know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right before I lost my leg, one of my CrossFit trainers' stepmothers was, you know, a head up in isogenics, and she knew somebody that used to do figure modeling with her. And that girl had just lost both of her legs to sepsis. And she got me in contact with this girl, and that girl mentored me over the phone through FaceTime before my surgery. And then all of a sudden I'm watching her social media, and she's at this place called the Adaptive Training Foundation. And I started to follow ATF, and then I started to watch her journey and her speaking, and the tone of her, you know, messages change, and this positivity and all of this. And that was the first seed that was planted about ATF. And then about a year later, after I'd lost my leg and there were some socioeconomic changes in my life, Travis Mills, one of the now
I love Travis.
One of the now 6 survived U.S. veterans that are quadruple amputees. He actually has a retreat up in Maine, which is right near New Hampshire. And he was speaking at a tiny town right next to where I was living in this rural town, Epic, New Hampshire. And I went to see his speech because I heard about this guy that was coming, and I was actually just reading his book at the time. So I brought my book to get signed, and he does this big presentation about the Adaptive Training Foundation and his experience there. And so I'm like, this is the second time that I'm randomly hearing about this. So I start following it on Facebook, and I'm reposting ATF's posts. And of course, I'm super motivated and compelled by it. And then, you know, the next thing I see was Ellen DeGeneres, because I used to watch the show, and he, Travis Mills, and David, the owner of ATF, were on Ellen DeGeneres. And I'm like, out of the blue, this thing keeps popping up in my life. And then I qualified for Wadapalooza last year for CrossFit. And one of the competitors was an athlete that used to be in the class at ATF, and they had reached out and invited me down to visit one of the graduation ceremonies for the foundation. And that's when I just was like, I threw caution to the wind, and I flew down not knowing anybody, and I stepped foot in that facility, and it was like my soul was magnetized. I mean, I knew I had to be there. And I, you know, was in Europe bobsledding with USA after Wadapalooza, and I got a phone call from the director, and they said, you know, you've been accepted into the program. And so I packed everything in the storage unit, packed my Jeep Wrangler to the gills, and I took a 2-week road trip with my best friend on the front seat. We drove all the way down to Texas, and I just sort of couch hopped and stayed in different friends' houses to make it work, because the opportunity was incredible. And just the seeds that were planted, or the little breadcrumbs that led me down this path to make this huge decision to reroute my life. It was supposed to be temporary. And then once you get through those doors, I mean, your heart just gets hooked. And it's really hard to leave, because after they pour into you, and then you have this huge full cup, and you can't help but, if you have the capacity, to fill back into other people. And so that's what kind of led me to stay.
Yeah. Hearing your story too about how you threw caution in the wind, you load your car and you go. I had an experience similar, but like the idea is you took a huge step. And I felt free in my case, but you took like a huge step, loaded up, you had a major surgery go down. You may have another major surgery, who knows, revision, whatever it was going to be at the time, but you threw a lot of caution into the wind and you went down there. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty brave of you, because I know a lot of things were going on around you at the time. So
yeah, thank you. I actually was told by my surgeons that they wanted to operate on my right leg the month that I was supposed to be leaving for Texas. And, knowing what I know now on my left leg, my condition, popliteal artery entrapment syndrome, is so rare. And all of the debulking, when they went through the back of my leg and they hacked stuff out 3 different times, those didn't work. And the 6 different bypasses didn't work. And then it was limb loss. Now, I mean, I'm not letting someone touch my foot until it's like a Mr. Deeds foot. So
Same here, man.
So thankfully I knew what I knew, because I was not going to let someone operate on my leg until I got to ATF and I saw what that was about. And I allowed some space in my life to generate some creativity and to fill up my emotional bandwidth so that I could tackle, the rest of what life was going to offer me, because, it just gets harder and you have to have some respite. You have to take those moments to recharge, even if you're quote unquote non-compliant in medicine. Sometimes your priorities are different than the priorities of the surgeons. And so far, thankfully, things are stably unstable. But, it was a big deal to move away from my entire support system, my community, my family, everybody that I knew, to go down to this place where I felt like I should be. But to be honest with you, I have just as big a community of friends and people that love me here, and only being here for less than a year, than I have in New Hampshire. And there's quite a large group in New Hampshire. And so it's not a statement about the number being low in New Hampshire. It's just a testament to the tribe that's here in and around Texas. I mean, the support for folks with disabilities and the support for veterans, which I am not, but a huge veteran supporter. We always joke, my entire family are veterans. And so we joke that I was the only one that didn't serve. So this is my repayment for not serving, losing a leg. But it's just so compelling. And I think ATF has a huge part to do with that, because of their partnerships with a lot of local nonprofits. And, it's in the Bible Belt, and there's a ton of humanitarianism around here. So it's a really beautiful place. And of any place for someone with such a tenuous medical situation to uproot and move toward, this was really the safest place to go to. And I'm very blessed that it worked out.
Yeah, I thought about loading up the Davidson clan and throwing us in a car and moving to Texas, Dallas, because theirs is a huge support system. It's a good place.
Yeah, come on down.
Yeah, it's a great place. It's a great place to be. I did live around that region for a bit, and I had a good time. It was good. But like hopping in that car, bucking medical advice, I do the same thing. You're right. You never know what's going to happen in that realm. Maybe hold out a little bit, see what's going to play out. For me, if I was born in Iowa where they were doing different surgeries and different techniques, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm okay. I'm not upset about where I'm at right now, but just things change and time changes.
Right.
So who knows?
And that's the thing too, is through tragedy, through trauma, being born with, physical limitations, or, anything that people go through that's hardship, you can either choose to, I should say, quote unquote, play it safe, or you can choose to take some risks. And I feel like once you go through significant trauma, you recognize that, tomorrow isn't promised. And, we get so busy in our lives every day that we worry about the silly stuff. We spilt coffee on our outfit on the way to work, or we're stuck in traffic, so we're 10 minutes late to a meeting, or this little thing happened, or we're having a bad hair day, or, I'm 2 days late on a bill, or, these things that are real problems to people. But when you've suffered through life or death situations repeatedly, it really makes you dig into different, you have a paradigm shift. And I talked about this before in some of the coverage, but, in 2018 for me, my logic changed, and it was, I'm not going to do things that are the most logical, quote unquote, or financially sound. This year is going to be following these two rules. If I answer the following two questions with a yes, I'm going to do it regardless. And those two questions were, am I going to regret not doing this? Or does this have the possibility of enriching me or being able to help somebody else? And that's what allowed me to choose the things that I chose and then open the door for all of the amazing experiences and opportunities that I never could have planned for and I never would have had happen if I played it safe and I counted on tomorrow happening.
You don't play it safe, and it seems like you're kind of living very present at the moment. You're involved in like so much stuff too, like not just stuff, but organizations. Can you tell us more about your organization, Less Leg, More Heart? Like really kind of dive into what you're about, what you're looking to do, because it's really interesting. I know what you're about. The listeners don't, or they might. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, when I was getting into adaptive athletics to kind of chase endorphins to, just kind of escape my reality. Because at that time, I lost my leg, and 6 weeks after with surgery, I came home and all of my husband's stuff was gone. And all of a sudden now I'm this, new
Did you know?
This huge wound. No, I just came home and all of this stuff was gone. And, so I had this wound back on my leg. I had a 3-floor house with 2 dogs in the middle of rural New Hampshire on 60 acres of conservation in the middle of winter coming. And I had to figure out how to survive. And so I started to, get involved back in CrossFit, which I did as an able body years ago to try to get confidence back and chase endorphins. And that all worked for a period of time. And some of my community wanted to raise funds for some of the athletic endeavors I was doing because at the time I wasn't working and it was nice to have some financial buffer. So they made some shirts and they were like, oh, do you want a slogan on the back? And I had said, Less Leg, More Heart, because, I was talking to a friend and I said, I feel like I'm they had to take my leg up 3 times. So I had 2 revisions and they went higher and higher each time. And I kept saying, I feel like the more leg that I'm losing, the more gratitude and heart I feel like I'm gaining. And so there was this like mindset shift. And so that was the slogan on the back of the shirts that were made. And so after I came to ATF, I started to get mentored by a couple of really wonderful people here and talk to them about the struggles that I faced in the post-operative period as a new amputee. And a lot of that was, when I came home from acute rehab and my husband had left, I couldn't do anything around my house. And so I had this beautiful community of people in my house all day doing the cleaning and cooking and taking care of the lawn and taking care of the dogs and helping me get showered up and, taking the dump out and all of the doing, taking me to appointments. But there was so much doing for me that I wasn't able to take the masks off my face to really be able to dig in, mourn, grieve, and get to acceptance. And the people that were the closest to me were in such survival mode doing for me that they also couldn't mourn, grieve, and get to acceptance because it's really a loss for everybody. It's scary and it's new and it's traumatic for everyone involved. And the stuff, the to-do stuff and the medical stuff and the financial stuff all gets in the way of your ability to really do the things that are going to nurture your soul and your body and get you well. And stress physically impairs your ability to heal. And so, that was one big facet. And also, I felt like I was having a hard time advocating for myself, even though I was a medical clinician, because I was so medicated because of all of the complications that it was hard for me to swim outside of the fog to advocate. And so these ideas about these holes that I needed to try to fill for myself, I recognized quickly in meeting more adaptive people that they all had those same struggles and they didn't have the resources to take care of them. And I was like, how hard is it to arrange services to clean someone's home or deliver them meals or, take their dump out or do this or do that and innately build a community of service providers around somebody that's just gone through a trauma that has a resultant permanent disability and create a tribe of people around them and people that are there to do stuff for them that are not their primary family members or caregivers so that those family members and those patients can actually focus on the important thing, which is learning and embracing the new set of their physical circumstances and really trying to heal faster so that they can skip the suffering that doesn't have to happen. And so all of a sudden this board of people happened. I've got 6 people on my board plus me, and they're all just incredible business savvy, humanitarian hearted folks. And we were like, let's do this. provide peer mentorship and connect the dots and partner with other organizations to fill gaps. And let's use you as a medical advocate and go to bedside and be with these people and these families to make sure they know the right questions to ask and make sure that they, have the right prescriptions and their discharge planning is going well and that they understand what to expect and they have a voice when they can't be the voice. And let's, figure out how to link services and let's figure out how to provide holistic wellness. I mean, it's really asinine that I can get a prescription of narcotics or an injection or surgery, but I've lost 20 pounds of muscle post-operatively and I can't afford a protein powder because I don't have the money because my medical bills are so high. Or I can't go, I can't go buy turmeric as an anti-inflammatory, but I can go buy a ton of ibuprofen that's going to give me a GI bleed. Or, all of these lack of funding for holistic approaches to care because insurance is dictating what people can and can't get, and it's at the detriment of the folks that are going through it. So I just took all of these sort of anecdotal pieces of information and put them all together. So my nonprofit, Less Leg, More Heart, I say my, but it's really we, we fix all of those problems. We want to identify people in the community and their families that are either approaching a new disability or have had a recent disability, whether it's a diagnosis of a neuromuscular condition or a spinal cord injury, an amputation, or, there's plenty of other things that qualify. We want to get to their home and make sure that we offload the doing of the home for a period of time that's appropriate to get them past that first hump. We want to tap into their health and their nutrition and make sure that we're covering them with CBD oils and books on, wellness or, mindset. We want to, connect them to resources. We want to Skype in or FaceTime in with them. Or if they're a below knee and above knee amputee, we want to get them to a person that has that exact, issue so that they can really get one-to-one advice from someone that's been through it. And we want to make sure that we provide as much value to that person and that family from an educational standpoint as we can. And so that's why I've started the, Facebook page and the YouTube and the LinkedIn. And now recently, the YouTube is growing and it will eventually be a place where testimonies can go up, but also stories. The why behind this is we want to decrease suffering and promote hope for people and their families and their communities because we need them to see that it's going to be okay. It's going to be tough, but through education, preparation, and restoration, that they will be okay, and that there are a lot of people in their corner and a lot of people have done it before. And we want to make it an educational platform, not only for people that have disabilities so that they know where to go and be enlightened, but also for folks that are able-bodied so they can kind of peek behind the curtain and see what these lives are like so that they can interact with folks that have challenges in a way that's more normal so that we can stop this awkward tension that happens between folks that don't look or act the same physically and folks that do. For instance, mom walking down the street and she's got a small child and the child walks up and points at my leg and says, "Mommy, what's wrong with her leg?" And, the mother will look totally, embarrassed and grab their child and say, "I'm so sorry." And I'll stop them and say, "No, please let me show them." And I'll, pop the leg off and do a show and tell. And, they don't need to know it hurts, but let them see it. Let them see that difference does not define me. It makes me more interesting. This is something that people are going to see all over the world. So we need to expose it. We need to shine light on it. And we need to make it less taboo. And the way that we do that is by just talking about it, getting the platforms going. So we identify people that need things. We identify resources and companies that are looking to give to help us change lives and spread hope. We try to get communities heavily involved locally for the people that we identify so that we can create a tribe around these people. And we try to capture that as much as we can, and we'll do a better job moving forward so that we can post that on YouTube for people to follow so that they, in their communities, will be, enlightened so that should something happen in the future, they may know how to approach it in a way that makes everybody feel more comfortable.
It's amazing. It's an amazing organization. You said YouTube also, you had like 100,000 on one of your videos. You get a lot of hits on there, which is awesome. You have a terrible voice. I'm just kidding. You have a beautiful voice. I saw you singing. So you're made to air those things. Yeah, it was a good voice. Good song.
A couple bottles of Sam Adams will do and some auto-tune, right?
You have a good voice.
Thank you.
You need better mic equipment, though. We can hook that up and record an album. at some point.
Oh, totally.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, my brother and I have a little jam. No, you're not kidding. My brother and I have a jam session in his basement, and we're just so archaic and rudimentary, but we want to up the game a little bit because we have so much fun. Actually, one of my favorite covers ever, this guy, Noah Gunther, it's only one Noah on YouTube, and he makes a really cool acoustic rendition of Sexy and I Know It by LMFAO.
Yeah.
And my brother and I have been singing it forever. And so we covered it. I was home a few weeks ago, and I'm in like a onesie, and him and I are, it's like midnight, and we had a couple of drinks, and we're having fun, and we're covering songs. We cover it. We tag Noah, and Noah actually gets in touch with us, and he was really excited about it. So we might make a little, we want to try to do it remotely, because he's in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to figure out how to hook up a system where we can kind of jam together over, it's our therapy,
You have a great voice. I'm like, holy shit, that's a really good voice. I didn't expect that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have it wasn't a karaoke voice, people, like that awful. Yeah, you have a good voice. So yeah, I saw that, but yeah, you have a ton of hits on your YouTube channel. It's working great. And a lot of the needs you voiced, like 2 interviews back, Max Uloa York. Sorry, Max. I always screw up your name. Max was talking about this very need, how he needed that while he was in a hospital. And when it came to services, food, advocacy, and then afterwards too. But the point being is that he's going through all those hardships, and he voiced exactly what your organization is doing. It's filling that void that's there.
I just want people to know that we're here. We're not going to be able to help everybody, but we might be able to get them to people that will help. And, there's a lot of things that people don't even know are resources out there. For instance, if anybody's interested in getting back to gainful employment, or they are gainfully employed and are having a hard time continuing with it because of challenges like, transportation, there are vocational rehabilitation offices throughout the entire country that are federally funded. And so they actually modified my Jeep. They paid for a $6,000 wheelchair for me. They reimbursed me to have zippers put in all of my work pants so that I could actually access my prosthetic on and off throughout the day. And people don't know that that's there. I didn't know that was there for the first 2 years I was an amputee. So it's just those little, pearls of wisdom that you just learn through going through it that you can share to other people as other resources if for some reason we can't help or a nonprofit that we know can't help. So, if anybody out there is hearing this and they know of somebody in need, or even any of the other folks that you've interviewed previously, just going to the website, www.lesslikemoreheart.com, contact us. It goes right to my email, and I will link people to services if I can't directly help. And if I have the capacity to help, I will make it happen.
That's badass. You're like our adaptive Mr. Rogers. You know what I mean? Like, bring it.
That is the first time that reference has happened.
It's because I'm a Pittsburgh kid.
One of the coaches at it's so funny. One of the coaches at the Adaptive Foundation, he's British and he's hysterical. And the other day I wore a sweater to the foundation, and I thought it was a cute sweater. And he walks in and he goes, "Hey, Tina," and I was like, "Yeah." And he has this like stoic, dry humor. He goes, "Mr. Rogers called. He wants his sweater back." I'm like, "What
nice.
are you saying?"
It's probably good. I love those sweaters. I'm a huge Rogers fan though. If your hair goes short and you part it to the side, then and you start to go full Rogers, then we know there's an issue for sure. But yeah, it's pretty damn altruistic. It's smart though. There's a huge gap there, and it's needed. It's pretty necessary. Hey, you run Spartan. Yeah. I got to hit on this. You run Spartan here in Nevada.
What an incredible opportunity. I was invited on Team SAR, and I was supposed to have a shoulder surgery, and so I had declined, and I had just had steroid injections, and I wasn't going to do it. I didn't even know that was so I was supposed to have surgery 2 weeks after the Spartan race had happened, and so I didn't even realize it was the same one that SAR was doing. And so then, ATF one morning on Fridays, the whole community comes out and big time people stop by, and all of a sudden the owner of Spartan walks in the doors, and he said, "Listen, I am sponsoring any athlete in this gym that wants to go to our para-elite Spartan. We're making history out in Laughlin, Nevada, and anyone that signs up will have a free ride from us." So 7 guys, so there's teams of 4, 7 guys from ATF signed up, no girls. So I signed up even though, my shoulder was kind of busted and I just had steroid injections. I'm like, I'm not missing the opportunity to go create history for the, this inclusion movement and participate in this life-changing moment for the adaptive, just the whole community at large. and so many of my friends will be there. So 8 of us from the Adaptive Training Foundation got free rides from Spartan. They're incredible. We all stayed together, played together, and the race itself was like 5 miles. And, a lot of us had wheelchairs, grit wheelchairs. I can stand and jump and do a couple of things on my feet, but I lose blood flow very quickly.
Uh-huh.
So I was kind of hybrid. I was in the wheelchair a little bit, and then I was able to get up and do some things also out of it. But, you're pushing this wheelchair through 6 to 8 inches of Mojave Desert sand. And I mean, it was the real deal. And it was just absolutely just the most moving thing to see the depths of grit and how deep some of these folks dig to do things that just you would never imagine that they could do. I mean, it was just I was so honored to be part of it. It was so humbling. I can't tell you how many times I cried. One of the teams from ATF, they had 2 below-knee amputees, and they had 1 paraplegic and 1 blind above-knee amputee. So 2 wheelchairs being pushed by 2 amputees, one who had just had surgery, like his amputation a few months before that. And, they didn't think that they could finish. But they're like, we're going to work till the clock runs out. And they finished with like 10 minutes on the clock. They worked for like 5 hours. And it was the most insane thing to be part of. And I'm so, I can't applaud Spartan enough for giving this kind of a platform for adaptive athletes to actually be able to win some money and be competitive in obstacle course racing, because there's nothing like that out there for adaptive athletes. And it's innovative, it's progressive, and it's really wonderful of such a big organization to recognize the need and to really get behind the para division. So just kudos to Spartan and a huge thanks to them for allowing the Adaptive Foundation and all of us to be part of that. It was a monumental occasion.
Yeah, that was amazing. I watched you on ESPN. I saw you. You're a big star in the ESPN world now. Seriously, I watched you there. And then
my 5 minutes of fame. It was awesome.
Yeah, I saw some trash talk heating up after the race, though. Like, everybody's getting ready for next year, so there's going to be a lot of competition out there for sure. That's awesome.
Well, it's awesome, but and that's what it's about. It's like, you lose a leg or you lose a spinal cord function, but you don't lose that inner competitive person. And so you're just like everybody else. Everybody wants to win and everyone wants to go out there. But the cool thing about the adaptive population is they actually really, really want to see each other succeed too. I mean, I finished the race. My team took second because we had a wheelchair. So, Team Star did incredible. They were impressive, and they were blessed they didn't have a wheelchair to lug through the Mojave sand. It was smart of them. But, there's strategies, right? Like in any sport, there's strategy. And so it's going to be interesting to see how people strategize for the second time that it's done, because you've got the way they ran it before, you've got a point system. So as a team collectively, you only are allowed to follow within a certain point system. So each person is rated on a point system based on their disability. And so, like, for instance, out of 5, I got a 2 because of the things with my legs and my shoulder.
Yep.
And so you as a team collectively can't be below an 8 and you can't be above a 14. But, an 8
it's a lot of wiggle room
14 is a wiggle. Yeah. And so people are going to stack teams. So, which is great because it's going to be fair playing ground and it's going to be a fight to the finish. And I'm just really excited to see the way that teams form and, it's going to be really interesting to see the strategy behind how things move forward.
With ESPN there, though, you couldn't cheat because it's on film. You know what I mean? Like, they're actually video.
Oh, there's no cheat.
I'm just kidding.
No
I would cheat. I would cheat, though.
There's no cheating. I mean, I the only cheating that could ever happen is like, you trip somebody that has a fake leg, and
yeah, that's the type of cheating I would do, though. It's like I would try to shortcut it.
No, you can't, man. They followed us pretty good. They had cameras everywhere.
You guys were, it was really cool.
I want to do a shout out, man. One of the guys on my team has no arms. So he was born with like some fingers below and no shoulder joints, right? So the penalty for not completing an obstacle is 30 burpees. Well, if you don't have any shoulder joints and arms, most of the obstacles you can't do. And so this guy had never done a burpee, going into this race because he doesn't have any arms. How do you do a burpee? And, he gets in the sandbox for his first round of burpees and he just kind of looks and he just jumps on the ground, touch it. All you got to do is touch your chest and jump. So those are the 2 rules. And that kid banged out so many burpees in that race. after never having done one. I mean, talk about MVP, you know what I mean? And that's what it's about. You know, it's about defying odds, and it's about proving to yourself that the stories that you've told yourself about what you can and can't do are wrong.
What was his name?
JD Harvey. He's an adaptive athlete at the Adaptive Training Foundation, and kid didn't do one burpee going into this competition. And in Mojave Desert Sand, in the midst of a 5-mile obstacle course race, he is just incredible. And the confidence that he gained from that, and just, I mean, that's what it's about. That's, you know, one of the paraplegics, Chris Wolf, he had to scoot himself at the end of like 4 hours of grinding through this course, trying to finish. He scoots himself up like a 30-foot hill. I don't know if you saw that one. It was after the vertical cargo net. And then
I saw it all. I just can't remember. Yeah.
Hill. So he's exhausted. You know, he's been working for like 4 hours at this point, and he's scooting slow but diligently all the way to the top. And I'm with him because I finished the race, our teammate second, and I took an ATV all the way back to walk with ATF Team 1 that was, you know, trying to finish the race. And we get to the top of this hill after he's scooted up, and you can tell that he's completely exhausted. And he just looks at me, and I knew it was the eve of his 10-year Alive Day. And he just erupted in tears. And me and about 15 other people that were at the summit of that hill with him just sat there and cried together, because it was just such a moment of triumph and a moment of unity. And just, you know, looking back, and, you know, you're looking over the whole competition venue, and you can see the finish line, and it's just so symbolic of life. You know, you're just grinding away at this hill that's like never ending, and then at some point, when you don't realize it, you get to the top, and you just get to take a breath and take in the view of the struggle of your climb. I mean, it was just honestly one of the highlights of my life. I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget that hug. And that's the stuff that it's about, you know.
Well, your crew rides together. You compete together, you play together, and you ride together. And
we party together.
Oh yeah. Did you behave in Vegas? Did you stay out of trouble?
Yeah, we went on in Vegas proper for the night. I mean, I don't know about staying out of trouble. I mean, nobody got arrested, which is good, but we had a good old time.
Yeah, I actually haven't been to the Strip in like 10 months. I just don't even care anymore to go down there.
Well, you know, the bonus with going out in Vegas with a bunch of people in wheelchairs is if you have one or two more cocktails too much, you just get a wheel home, you know?
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
The built-in system.
I mean, the casinos are like a little wild, and I'm like, there's a crew of people that play really hard, and they're about to descend. I didn't hear about it till the day it happened and played out, because I was traveling too, and I'm like, wait, what? Everybody's right here, and I'm like, I was just getting back into town too, and I'm like, this is gonna be crazy. So that was really cool to watch.
Awesome.
That was groundbreaking.
Thank you.
And it was
groundbreaking.
Yeah. Spartan, thank you.
History was made. Yeah, Spartan for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. But you do other stuff. Like, this is the one that got me. Well, actually, you do a bunch of things. In fact, I was going to sign up for your, you got like kind of a group that's, you know, getting in shape, getting ready for summer. And
Accountability Buddies.
Yeah, I should have signed up for that, because I'm not taking care of it. And I'm usually pretty
the Lou
honed in.
The Lou Run Challenge?
Yeah, I didn't do it. I should have signed up.
We're going to run. No, that's okay. We'll run it again. It was just a 5-week kind of kickoff. Lurong is a personal sponsor of me, and they've done a lot of good for my nonprofit as well. And so they're actually doing, they're splitting proceeds, and a lot's going to the nonprofit for anyone that signed up for the 5-week wellness challenge. And they have a huge university online, basically, of information about wellness and different diets and exercise and mindset. And they've got awesome products, but they also have really incredible education platforms. And so we'll run more in the future. And so you'll have a chance to jump on at some point later.
Yeah, this spring I have just been weaker than any spring before, in terms of like not slapping a whole bunch of pizza onto my ass and hips. It's like I'm eating all the time. It's awful. I got to get that shit together. But all right, another thing you're involved in is Power Monkey Camp, which is insane. I saw that. It's really wild. And that's like your
literally the best 2 weeks of your life. It's like an adult fitness fiasco led by like subject matter experts, Olympians, filled with 100 campers from all over the world that come out to just learn and share and be vulnerable. And it is, you know, I was told by friends that are on staff with them that it's literally the highlight of their year. And I said, you know, how great can it really be, right? And I got a scholarship from Greg Lucas, who owns a nonprofit, Bcaas, that actually sponsors an athlete to go to Power Monkey Camp because it's about 2,000 or 2,500 for the week. Because it's a full week. I mean, it's a full camping experience. You're camping in cabins, and it's the big gymnastics facilities that they take over and make it into like a CrossFit/gymnastics facility. Rosie Joe Meals, caters the whole thing with amazing food. It's right by the lake. I mean, they've got a ropes course. I mean, it's literally like an adult fitness camp that like kids, you historically think of kids would go to, but the people that are there, I mean, Chris Hinshaw, leading aerobic capacity coach in the world, Dave Durante and Shane and his wife Sadie, and they started it. They developed the ring thing, a ring apparatus that takes off 50% body weight, so you can actually train skill sets on rings. They fly people from all over the world in, that are just innovators and educators. Mike Malloy that owns M2 Nutrition, that is an immunologist and molecular biologist that does education about nutrition. I mean, between the fitness tips that you get from Olympians and subject matter experts to the education that they provide to you from just top-notch instructors, it is such an enriching experience, and you really do create lifelong friendships.
That sounds really fun. Seriously sounds fun. What is the future? This makes me think of this. What is the future of adaptive athletics in terms of, like, we have the core center. Aaron Baker has the core center, and you have ATF. You're down there at ATF, and you have CAF, Challenge Athletes Foundation has their own system going on. But then there's a huge bunch of gaps everywhere else. And a lot of times adaptive athletes aren't training adaptive athletes either. You know what I mean? There's like kind of a gap there too. Where do you think this is all going?
I think with the Paralympic movement, with the increase in pay, I think with the increase in all of these foundations from some of us adaptive athletes that are finding these holes that need to be filled and joining strategic alliances and partnerships with each other to better the community. I think with all of these increased educational opportunities at, big platform events like Power Monkey and some large corporate gyms and the Adaptive Training Foundation, I think that with increased exposure, we're going to see the general public is going to see more of the capability than the disability. And I think that we're going to see a lot more adaptive athletes, recognizing their potential, and that we're going to get a lot more people in competitive sports. And we're going to have, a lot more competition to be at a higher level. We're going to see a lot more sponsored adaptive athletes. We're going to, I just think it's going to gain traction just as much as able-bodied, sports, not only for the personal, the person that's involved in it, the athletes, but also for the general public. I think we're just going to get a lot more recognition. I think that, like you mentioned, I think there's going to be a lot more adaptive educators that are actually adaptive. I think folks are going to recognize that just because they're in a wheelchair doesn't mean that they can't coach. I mean, Steph Hammerman is a prime example. She's now a Nike-sponsored athlete that just opened up her own gym. She's a level 2 certified CrossFit coach, and she's got cerebral palsy that's largely wheelchair confined. I mean, we're like the Mr. Kool-Aid man just crashing through these walls, I mean, we're just like knocking down walls. I mean, I don't see limits anymore. I see people joining hands and just rushing the gates. And I think sky's the limit. I don't know what the end is. I think it's just in the last couple of years, it's this tiny snowball that's just rolling downhill, creating this huge avalanche effect. And I think we're going to see a lot more people recognizing their true potential and creating larger things like these nonprofits that are going to really start changing a lot more lives.
I think you're right. You said coming together, our hands are together, we're going out there and just doing it. And it wasn't like that. A lot of years it wasn't like that. I mean, you had the Bob Babbitt's of the world opening up CAF and doing what they're doing down there. There's a lot of things, CAF that is, there's a lot of things that were going on, but at the same time, it was hard. There was a lot of personalities out there that didn't want to work together. And now it just seems like things are coming together. Everybody's like figuring out ways to just kind of build everything. So it's cool to see. It's cool to see the community build.
I think you're right on with it. I think that just in the last year or so, there's been a lot more unity. And I'm not sure what the reason is for that. I mean, I'm still relatively new to the adaptive world. I've only been an amputee for 2.5 years, and I've only really been a stable amputee for, less than a year or so. So I'm a little less versed in sort of the history of what adaptive, alliances and sort of the histories look like. But I can tell you that just in the last year, from what I've witnessed, I'm seeing a lot more nonprofits forming and a lot more opportunities happening in sporting for adaptive athletes. And so I really do think that this movement has now gained traction, and we're going to see it just peak at some point. I mean, we're just in the upswing. And so the more people that get out there that recognize that their voice, I mean, I think about myself, 2.5, 3 years ago, my entire life I thought was over. I had an identity crisis. I didn't know who I was without my physicality. I didn't know if I'd be able to work again. I was disfigured and unlovable and unemployable and all of these things in my head. And if you had told me then, like, I wish I could go back to that me and just give her a hug and tell her, just wait.
Yeah.
Wait until you see the doors that are going to open up for you. Because when you surrender to the control that you think that you have over life, and you just sort of let the universe lead, and you lead with love, and you allow the universe to kind of work for you, it really is a beautiful thing. Just putting yourself out there vulnerably, speaking your truth, giving yourself a voice, becoming an active participant in your life, and really ensuring that you are not a product of your circumstances, but you are a product of your decisions. That's you taking the control and taking the reins back and recognizing that you have just as big of a story and just as big of a capability to make an impact in the world through the methods that you can employ based on your experience in life is just as profound as me or anyone else. I'm not special. I've just decided that I'm not going to stop. I'm relentless. I have a passion to get this thing, this idea, this vision of inclusion and education as big as I can possibly make it until I die. And if people can just live their passion and really go out with guns blazing, recognizing that they have nothing to lose and everything to gain, and just join hands with other people, surround themselves with a tribe of mentors that are going to fan their flames and find places that will, places or things that will light their souls on fire, that they can become any person that they want to be. And it's just a matter of mindset. It's just, you can do anything, but your mind will tell you otherwise. And if you can learn to train your mind and you can surround yourself with other people that don't allow excuses to be valid and that will push you in the direction of excellence, it's really hard to negate that.
That's something I think I learned. I've learned to really just do what I feel like is best for the situation, following that passion, like you're saying, developing what I want to develop, whether it's a podcast, whether it's writing, whatever it is, I'm going after that. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to let negativity bring it down. And I'm going to surround myself with the people that need to bring me up, to help bring me up, and we'll bring each other up. And life has been really rewarding that way. Do you feel like after your surgery, I feel like as reality hits, time is limited. We really only have so much time to get stuff done. Pete McGregor, who I interviewed, really hit it home on that. But I've always believed that is you only have so much time to get it all done. And I don't feel like I have enough time because there's so much I want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like if you can just literally wake up every day recognizing, I think the whole idea and the way that people can view that is through gratitude. Gratitude is the basis for a positive mental outlook. If you can wake up and be grateful that your lungs are filled with air and that in and of itself renders you capable to make a difference in the world, and you make an effort every day to do something to better yourself or move yourself toward goals, that you are still moving forward. You could be crawling forward, you could be inching forward, but you're still moving in a direction. And at the very worst case scenario, you fail at something that you were trying to move toward, but you always fail forward because you learn lessons. There's a great book called The Obstacle is the Way, and it's all about turning, obstacles into opportunities, turning trials into triumphs, turning adversity into advantage. And if you can just look at life like it's not happening to me, but it's happening for me, and there are lessons that I can take from this, and I'm going to share these. I'm going to grab a megaphone, and I'm going to shout this from a mountaintop so that other people can hear it, so they don't have to go find it out the hard way, that you become this beacon of light for other people just because you're living your best life and you're doing the best you can to inch forward. And it all stems from gratitude. And I think that if we can start there, people that are just beginning this journey, I have so far to go, but I didn't get to this point where I'm on a podcast or I started a nonprofit by self-loathing or, laying around in my own, misery or adopting a victim mindset. I got here, I've visited the pity camp, but I haven't allowed myself to unpack there because I've got people around me. They're going to literally kick me out. I'll share a brief story with you about this. And this again goes back to this gratitude and this recentering and the importance of the people that are around you.
Yeah.
When my husband left me, the tiny bit of carpet that I felt that I had underneath my one remaining foot was just ripped. And, I was very viscerally affected by that. You could have taken all of my limbs, but losing my marriage was very hard. And so I gave up. I laid in bed for almost 3 weeks. I didn't have and I couldn't eat. I had no appetite. And because I couldn't eat, I didn't have energy to get around my home. I couldn't take care of my dogs. I was calling neighbors to come care for my dogs and told them I wasn't home. But really, I was upstairs because I physically couldn't get downstairs. I was wearing like the same clothes for 5 or 6 days, and I was ignoring calls because I didn't want people to see that I was vulnerable. And one of my best friends broke into my house, and she found me upstairs in my bed, the same clothes I'd been wearing for 5 days. And the first words that she told me, I had lost like 20 pounds of muscle. I was literally laying there looking like Skeletor. And she looked at me and she goes, "Tina, you are selfish." And I remember starting to get angry, and I was about to mount a response to her. And she said, "You're letting your pride and your ego interfere with your ability to let the people that love you the most help you in your greatest time of need. And that is selfish. This isn't your story. He doesn't deserve your energy. He doesn't dictate what the rest of your life is like. He did something to you, but you're doing the rest to yourself." And if she hadn't done that, I don't know how much longer I would have laid in that bed. And so I got up, and it was like a light switch. And I'm like, you're right. This isn't my story. My story is what I tell myself. My story is the truth that I live every day. My story is what I make of it. And every day is hard. It's not rainbows and sunshine. There are tears and there are frustrations and there's pain every day, but that's not my story. My story is what I'm making of it. And anybody and everybody can do the same exact thing by just denying yourself the opportunity to unpack in the pity cabin, and by finding true friends and by reaching out to people when you're in time of need to allow them to reset and recalibrate you, get you the help that you need, and get you back up and moving forward, because we are all destined for great things. We just have to make sure that we have the tools to do it.
That's an amazing story. That's a really cool story. You've got this whole crew though that's up in New Hampshire. Have you thought about what comes next? I'm hanging out in Dallas. Could you go back to that tribe? Could you, what's next up there?
Yeah. So it's funny that you asked. I actually, after this podcast, I have a phone call with an owner of a CrossFit gym up there. We're actually going to I'm headed home for a couple of weeks, coming up here soon before I will be actually working. I'm likely going to. I'm in the final stages of finalization, but working for a national prosthetic company, actually. So I'm really excited as a lifelong user, but also as someone that owns a nonprofit, to really learn as much as I can and to help educate clinicians about collaborating with prosthetists, which I think is going to be really vital. But because of that, I get to shake out a little bit and go up north. And so I'm going to be collaborating with a couple of businesses and a CrossFit gym about getting some fundraisers going for the nonprofit. Because right now we're tax exempt pending. We should get our exemption here soon. But in not even having the bank account and just being in a tax exempt pending state, I've been able to gift almost $6,000 of goods and services to people in the last 2 months. It's incredible. So it's really about just aligning, tons of networking, and really trying to get the shoulder rehab so that I can be my best self physically, and then hopefully start training to do some kind of a competition here in the near future, because that itch is getting louder and louder. So I got to scratch it here soon. Like I had said earlier in the podcast, I'll be meeting with the owner of Laney and Lou, which is one of my favorite cafes I'm a brand ambassador for up in New Hampshire, and hopefully collaborating with Victoria Arlen, who wrote a book called Locked In, and she's a brand ambassador for the same cafe. She actually was on Dancing with the Stars, and I'm really looking forward to meeting with her and collaborating. And, so it's just about contacting and connecting with those folks each time I go up.
You said Dancing with the Stars. What reality TV show would you go on, and which one would you not go on?
I was actually in the final round of interviews for $1 Million Mile last fall. Yeah. I think I bombed the last question. I was in front of the entire panel because I was in the very last stage. And they said, so if you get to water, what are you going to do with your prosthetic? And I was like, well, I have to take it off. And then, I don't have any blood flow in my legs, so I might need assistance devices for parts of the running. And they were like, okay, thank you.
Oh,
and they were probably like, this is too complicated. But I was really excited to get to the final stage, and just learning about that process was really cool. I don't know. I would love to, I love dance. I love gymnastics. I don't watch a ton of reality TV, so I'd probably have to brush up on, I'd have to brush up on some, what I'd be really good at? There's a show, has nothing to do with athletics actually, but there's a show about like Pinterest fails.
That would
where,
be yours.
Like people, like someone will show this beautiful cake, it's like this decadent cake and it's all like, it looks like a shark or something. And then they'll find 3 people that are like terrible bakers, and they'll do their best to make them, but they come out awful because like, it's so hard to replicate it. And I have a very strong 2 things that I'm really good at being bad at are accents and Pinterest like recipes. So, so I would be great on that show, but nothing to do with athletics. And then, Dancing with the Stars is so fun. I don't know, anything that like makes you wiggle and giggle would be my jam.
I could see that. I mean, I think I would have, like as a kid, I really wanted to be on Real World and get, like the arguments seemed fun, and just like the whole dynamics of the house and just everything there. It would just seem so over the top that it would be fun to be part of. I don't know why.
I would love Gladiator. Gladiators would be so cool. Remember like the 80s or the 80s and 90s?
I knew a Gladiator back in the day. They were crazy nuts.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool show.
I don't know if I could do American Ninja Warrior, but that looks pretty amazing too.
What's the new one? The Rock is hosting. It's like,
Oh yes, I just the name is escaping me, but I just found out about that too. Someone sent me the link.
Chris Rudin.
That looks pretty intense. It's such a precarious position because I can't use my legs for long.
Yeah.
So that's the only challenge, is it would have to be kind of wheelchair friendly, but I'm willing to get creative, man. If you have any ideas, shoot them to me, because I'm all about just going for it.
Sponsorships. You get sponsored all the time. Who's the best? Who's been the most supportive?
Adam Greenberg was the first sponsor I got from Lurong. I met him down at Wadapalooza.
Baseball
really
player?
Great guy. Yeah. Okay, really great guy. Has an incredible story about an injury that created the same, identity struggle. And, he got into wellness and health and created these really great products. He makes collagen protein, and he's got deer antler velvet and fish oil and BCAAs, and he makes a really good product line. And we had talked quite a bit, and then he was sponsoring me for the past year, and then he really gained interest in my nonprofit. He's really all about, I love people whose core values I align with, and he's very much about promoting health and wellness and, just helping people live their best lives. And he jumped on board with helping the nonprofit and has been very eager about supporting me in any way that he can, including the 5-week Lurong challenge that they just put out that's benefiting the nonprofit. There's the owner of DNA Anabolics, Dusty Mason. I met him at the Chive Charities Green Gala in Austin back this last summer, and he has been the most incredible sponsor for my nonprofit. I mean, that man has personally put in so much time and effort and resource to my nonprofit. His marketing team helped design my logo. He's helping me make shirts. He has gifted so many goods of CBD oil that I've been able to distribute to people with disabilities. He is always an ear as a friend, and also I could call him with anything for these folks. And he's just willing to just give of himself as much as he can and collaborate. He ran like a 2-month-long promo on every supplement that he sold for his company, which is extensive. And 15% of all of his proceeds went to my nonprofit. I mean, he is a huge contributor, has one of the biggest hearts, and has helped not only as a business partner, but as a friend. So I couldn't speak more highly about DNA Anabolics. They make some great products. Oh, Rosie Joe Meals, Katie Herman, she's a woman that sponsors or she caters for Power Monkey Camp, and she's got a huge heart. Her and her family drove up to the Adaptive Training Foundation, and her and I are like two peas in a pod. She's got a great heart too. And she actually has gifted me meals post-operatively, just free. And she is giving my nonprofit 50% discount on all meals that are ordered for the folks that are being sponsored by my nonprofit. So she's got a huge heart. If anybody's looking for like really healthy meals, Rosie Joe Meals, Katie Herman, they make them in Texas, but she ships them, like overnights them from like all over the country. It's packaged so that it gets to you and it's still frozen. But she's an incredible sponsor of mine as well. And I'm probably missing a few, but those are the big main ones. I mean, Lurong, DNA Anabolics, and Rosie Joe Meals are really the three staples of my everyday life.
How can people hang out with you? How can they be part of your organization? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I love a tribe. I love questions. I love to collaborate. I'm on Instagram, Tina H214, Tina Godfrey Hurley on Facebook, and then Less Like More Heart. That website is lesslikemoreheart.com, and Less Like More Heart can be found on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And you can access any of those and send messages. It will get directly funneled to me. If you're somebody that is in need, that has a disability, if you are a family member or a community member or an employer of someone that is in need and you have questions or you have concerns, you want to get educated, please reach out. If you are a company or a person that's looking to donate or volunteer or get involved and help me spread hope and change lives, please reach out. We really are non-exclusive. We can take people in any capacity. Every little bit helps, whether it's, boots on the ground or it's money in the pocket or it's, marketing, resharing posts, commenting posts, spreading. I don't want to spend money marketing because, I can send a boost out for $30, but that's going to pay for the meals for a veteran for a day.
Yeah,
so it's
totally.
I would rather,
that.
Exactly. Yeah. So people can reach out, but, any support that they're looking to give is really just word of mouth and marketing and, digging in and checking out what we're about. And if you like it, just reshare it. It's just all about getting the word out.
Nice. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. And really thank you for what you're doing by shining light in the adaptive world and, helping folks share their stories in an effort to help other people get through their lives and have people get, a heightened level of perspective. I really appreciate what you're doing.
All right, that's the episode. Remember, you can find contact information for guests in the show notes or on our website, livingadaptive.com. On livingadaptive.com, you can also find previous episodes, writings, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. Peace.